Okay, so as many of you know, the main event for UFC 249 happening on April 18th, 2020 may not actually happen. Khabib says that he won't be able to get out of Russia and that he won't be fighting Tony Ferguson on that date. However, the co-main event with Jessica Andrade versus Rose Namajunas still seems to be happening. Mainly, I wanted to talk about the chances of Khabib actually fighting Tony Ferguson. The whole mentality going into this is that this meant a lot for Khabib, right? He needed this for his legacy. He needed to defend his belt against the number one contender who was also an opponent that was rebooked 5 times for him. So this is something that he really needed for himself. He also spent a lot of money. He even said in one of his interviews that no one lost as much money as I did. And given Khabib's mentality, I believe that he spent a lot in his training camps, in his partners, just spent a lot of money that he'll lose if this doesn't go through. Now, he really focused on one thing, and that was location. I think Tony Ferguson also said the same thing. The UFC hasn't announced a proper location for this event yet. So that's why he says that he can't go somewhere or he can't attend it if he doesn't know the location, and he's not willing to just fly out of the country for it to be just canceled out of nowhere. He did, however, say that he's still very interested in fighting Tony Ferguson. So there is a chance of this actually happening if the UFC decides on location and if Russia gives him an opportunity to leave, right? Right now, the situation in Europe is getting better. I'm talking about the coronavirus situation. I believe Italy is even thinking about opening up their workplaces again and allowing people to go. Also, looking at the co-main event, Jessica Andrade versus Rose Namajunas. Now, I saw an Instagram post somewhere that Jessica Andrade was actually told to leave to Las Vegas by Dana White on around Tuesday or Wednesday of last week, and that she actually did leave to Vegas. So hopefully this card, can be saved. I know there's been many people stepping up, one of which is Justin Gaethje, the highlight. And I just want to talk about Tony's chances against Justin. I think this will be a very tough fight for Tony if he chooses to take it, but here are the reasons why I don't think it's a good idea to fight Justin. So Justin was a previous champion. He was the World Series of Fighting champion there. Plus, he came undefeated into the UFC, and his debut was against Michael Johnson. Now, I recently watched that fight, and what that fight taught me is not so much about Justin's skills. That's obviously very good, and he has that wrestling background, NCAA Division 1, but it was his heart. Now, Michael Johnson hit him with some bombs, and there were a few times where Justin Gaethje just looked to be out of it completely. Maybe one more punch or one more kick and he would have been down. However, he never gave up, and that was the most impressive part for me, is he defeated Michael Johnson, not physically, I don't think, but more mentally. Michael Johnson was hitting him with everything that he had, with his entire arsenal, and Michael Johnson hits very hard. But Justin Gaethje just didn't back down, and he was pressuring him the majority of the fight, which I found to be very surprising. So he never gives up, and even after that fight, he tried to attempt that backflip off of that cage, and he attempted it, I think, twice before actually getting it the third time. Now that just goes to show what kind of mentality he has. He's not going to back down, which is something that Tony is definitely not going to do as well. So I think it's going to be a very tough fight for the both of them. I think it's going to be a great fight, but it's also a very dangerous fight for Tony, because if he loses against Justin here, his chances of a title shot are now going to be very slim, especially given his age. If he loses against Justin, then he may have to fight Conor, and if he loses that, then he may never have a chance at the title again. So it's a very tough fight. Plus another thing, Justin, I don't think he's going to wrestle, and clearly Tony's entire entire camp was probably focused around Khabib's wrestling and doing jiu-jitsu locks, seeing what kind of submissions he can do off of his back, how to fight off of his back, and he probably primarily focused on this. Not saying that that won't help him against Justin. I'm just saying that Justin, I don't think he's going to take him down, and it's going to be a stand-up fight for the majority part of it, which is going to go against everything that Tony has trained for. Also, Justin has a great ability to absorb and roll with the punches, which is very similar to Tony. You know, they say Nate Diaz is very similar. He's kind of like a punching bag for the first couple rounds, and then he sort of gets into the groove and he's able to outlast you with that cardio, with that intense cardio. And I think Justin has that same ability. He's not going to go down very easily, and he will come back in the later rounds, which is going to cause problems for everyone. But if there's one person that can definitely step up to that, I believe it's Tony Ferguson. So although this is a dangerous fight to him, I think right now Tony will still win this match. I think Tony's just too dangerous with his elbows, his wrestling, also his jiu-jitsu skills are just crazy, not to mention his cardio. So we'll see what ends up happening. If Justin wins this, it's a lot better for him, in my opinion. I think Tony doesn't really have much to gain from this fight other than the money. However, for Justin, if he wins this fight, then he has a clear shot at Khabib. But that's another story. I actually think that Khabib has a better chance winning against Justin than Tony, mainly because of lack of jiu-jitsu from Justin's side. He's not really well known for his submission skills, whereas Tony, with that Darce choke and his training with Eddie Bravo, I think he poses a really huge threat to Khabib's ground game, especially off of his back. So yeah, those are just some of my thoughts about UFC 249 that is hopefully still going to happen on April 18th, 2020. But even if the main event isn't what we were promised, we still have that co-main event that should be amazing, as well as Calvin Kattar against Jeremy Stephens. That should be a great fight as well. So let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts. If you agree with my thoughts or if you have some differing opinions, I'll be very happy to hear what you think about these fights. So thank you guys for watching my video, and let me know if you want me to post any more UFC content.